Everybody, welcome to the Gen Z podcast. This is episode 120, and I have my dear friend BJ Ketchem with me today. He's a fellow Capital teammate. He trains jiu-jitsu at Capital Lorton, and him and I both kind of have taken over and run the Capital comp team. So it's awesome to be able to work with BJ and kind of organize all the competition classes and competitions that all of our members and students want to partake in. But BJ is a 4-stripe blue belt, correct? I hope that you just got your 2 additional stripes. Congrats, man. You've been an athlete like all your life.
Yeah.
And we're going to dive into that a little bit more. But you're also a teacher, former principal, and you're a strength and conditioning coach.
Correct.
And I think most importantly, you're also a client of mine. Besides a good friend, you're a client of mine as well. And I'm so proud of you. We've been able to really work on kind of some nutrition stuff or some tournaments that you've been, being able to compete in. But I'm so glad to have you on here today. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk and to just share our story for sure.
So I was sharing this with you before we got on here, but you've known Jay for a really long time.
Yeah, since 2002.
So we had both, that's a long time.
Yeah.
We had longer than I've known him. But we were talking and I was telling him I was going to have you on the podcast. And we had seen, and I knew about this too, but a very inspiring post that you shared a little while back. And we, I think to have you on here today to talk about this pursuit of happiness and this sense of self and kind of really figuring out what's important to you and kind of prioritizing life. But we're like, we have to call this the $27,000 moment because you shared this post from, you were a principal for years and you made the decision to go back to teaching.
Yeah.
And of course that came with a pay cut. But
little one.
I also think a $27,000 one, but I also think there were so many benefits to you to kind of keep you sane. So I want you to talk about that. That's got to be a very difficult decision to come to, but I think we are motivated a lot of times by, the money we make and financial obligations that we have, rightly so. But if you're not happy doing something, I think people don't think it's an option to make a change.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get your insight on that, if you can share that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it always, like everything in life, always comes back to relationships. They're really the driver for me, at least, whether it's good things or bad things, but relationships are first and foremost. So I think it kind of put it in a couple different buckets. One, I grew up, my family wasn't poor, but we didn't go on a lot of vacations. My mom, stay-at-home mom, and took care of the family. Dad was a UPS man and didn't make a lot of great money back then. We had to share clothes, had to wear my sister's hand-me-down shoes. We weren't poor, but we also didn't have a ton, right? But we had a lot of love, and money was never like a big priority in our family. It was about family. It was about looking out for each other. So I had that like as a constant in my life. It was always there. I was raised that way. And then it came back to like, as you get older, the people you're around, right? Like that mattered. It mattered like who I surrounded myself with. Fortunately, I have an amazing wife who from the very first day, she challenged me, like on her very first, like she wouldn't call it a date, but it was a date.
That's awesome. What?
Yeah,
I love it.
She challenged me right out the gate, but I also knew I had a great person there, right? That I could rely on. So money was never a focal. It was always about like, do the things that you love to do and we'll figure it out. And that's really kind of what it's always been for us. There was a point when I actually left teaching for a year to become a strength and conditioning coach full-time in the private world. And that was even worse. Like the pay.
Oh yeah, that's a hard. Yeah.
It was brutal. Like, I mean, teaching, no money, I think I was making like I remember I was making $42,000 a year at that point in DC, which is not a lot. And it's tough to get by. And she was like, go for it, go for it. And literally went from like $42,000 to like $22,000. And then it was like, I had to figure out ways to keep making money to start making it up.
You got to hustle when you are an entrepreneur. Like, you do not have that salary you can rely on, and you've got to make things happen.
Not at all. So like, what I found in that moment too was that like I loved teaching. I loved working with kids and helping change lives. That's why I ultimately became a teacher, because I was that kid. So then, fast forward, my wife continues to be this amazing force in my life and a support. We have a great, amazing daughter who is part of that, and wants me to be happy. And what was really kind of for me was big was that I became an administrator. I was an administrator for 8 years, and I always was like kind of moving quickly, like through things. I got good promotions, I got great opportunities provided to me, and I just kept saying yes and going for it. And then to be it was a head of a middle school in a private school, so essentially a principal. That was it was that next step, right? And it was a great school, great community, but it was brutal. The time was a lot of time away from family. It was very stressful. And then COVID happened. And
I was gonna say, you lived that during COVID. That's like a whole other
so
layer.
Like, first year, as a principal, just half the way in, and then all of a sudden COVID happens, and then it was just had to figure out how to build the airplane while it's flying. And that was really hard. And it's not that I'm afraid of challenges, it's just it was not everything I was hoping for, right?
Sure.
But I want to stay committed. I want to see us through the pandemic as a school. And 3 years later, I'm kind of at this point where I'm like, man, is this really what I see myself doing, for the rest of my life? I've got probably 8-10 years left till I retire from education. And I'm like, is this how I want to spend that time? And then part of that too, which made it even more complicated, was that my father-in-law was dying of cancer. So I saw all that happening too. And then it came a point in that where I took 5 weeks off, the last 5 weeks of school, to move in with them to do hospice.
Wow.
With my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, and my wife still lived here. My daughter is still here, and they were traveling a few times a week, all the way like an hour and a half away. Well, it was just me and my mother-in-law. And it was in those moments where I was just like, I have to like make sure, I'd already turned in my resignation, but I wasn't sure how things were going to work out. But I just knew I was making the right decision, because I saw, and he and I had so many conversations, my mother-in-law and I had so many conversations. It was just like, I just got to do what makes me happy, that fills my soul. Everything will take care of itself. Like, and it was hard. Like, it's hard financially to take a pay cut like that, but what you get back out of it is like peace. I'm doing things that I love to do now, that I loved doing 20 years ago, coaching and training again. And that's been the biggest difference. I mean, my blood pressure went from like 152 over 126, right? And not sleeping, having panic attacks, like blacking out.
That's crazy. I remember you sharing that with me, and I'm just like, that's not healthy. And so the thing is that's scary is that I think so many people think that's normal and live that way.
Right. Well, that's the problem. That is normal, right? Like that's like
in our society, that is, yeah.
And it's a badge of honor to be like, I grind so hard and I have high blood pressure and I got to do. No, like that's ridiculous. Like that's not a badge of honor. That's a badge of like you're driving yourself to an early grave, right? So like, why not flip it? Why not take a chance? But ultimately, it comes back to your network, your relationships, right? Like I knew I had it at home. I knew my daughter wanted me to be the healthiest person I could be. I had Chad and Paul at the gym, and Jeremy gave me this opportunity to like work with you to start building out the program. The gym expanded at Lorton. We opened up the weight room, and Chad,
which looks amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's small and intimate, but we get
Oh,
after it.
it's awesome. You got everything in there that you need.
That's right, and it's super simple, nothing complicated. And
Hmm.
Chad and Paul presented me with that opportunity to like kind of spearhead that and be the strength coach, and um, it was great. Like it just everything worked out. And there's some days when we have to make choices as a family, like we can't spend money like we used to, but we're not. It's amazing how that much money, $2,000 a month essentially, like is a lot of money for sure. But the peace of mind that I got back, knowing that like I'm doing better as a person, and
Hmm.
it means more than anything else.
Well, that's priceless.
Yeah,
And
sure.
and I think you find ways, to like, what can I cut back on? What don't I need? And when you hear $27,000, it's like, oh my gosh. And then you break that down, okay, about 2,000 a month. So
Yep.
it's like, okay, what can I start cutting back on? What don't I need?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you're with the people that you love. You're doing the
Sure.
things that you love. You guys can all hang out and stay home together and have the best time. I mean, it's like you don't need these extra splurges, and it's like you figure out how to make this stuff happen.
Right.
You
Absolutely.
Everything always works out.
It does, and I think it's just it's like we always fear the thing that we don't know, right? Like
Of
we always
course, of
assume this
course.
is gonna be the worst case scenario, and things are hard, things do get hard, but like
Sure.
also you have to just remember like stay the course, just get through it. You're making this decision for the right reasons, um, and like you said, you get creative, you find ways, right? Like I had more time now, more time, which is mind blowing to me that I have more time in my day to use as I want to use. So then I just decided to invest it in growing out my coaching business. Um, and that's helped. That helps make up some of the difference. But everything, what I'm really trying hard to do is just keep it on my terms. I want to, the
Yeah.
people I work with, I want to work with them. I don't need anybody. Like I want to be around people I want to be around and do things with people I want to do things with.
And you're such an amazing coach. And I see you, I've experienced you teaching for comp class and just how inspiring you are. And you just believe in people. Like, I think that's, you know, something so incredible. Like, people can look to you for that confidence and that belief that they might not have in themselves. And you really are able to kind of push people to their limit, but believe in them so they can believe in themselves to get to that point and achieve that goal.
Like,
And coaching can be very difficult,
mhm.
and not everyone can do it. And I think you just have this natural knack for it. And um you know I think it's great seeing your videos that you put out too on like your Instagram, and working with some of your clients. Like the other day you posted about like doing like mental activities as well as like not just physical.
Yeah.
So like you would used to like call out like math numbers or whatever, like formulas or something, or math
Yeah,
problems.
multiplication
And
factor.
then like, yeah, like stuff like that. But just like really kind of, I think you have a well-rounded approach uh, to working with clients. And so when did you start like becoming a strength coach initially,
Yeah. So no,
or
that's it.
coaching in general with your athletic, background? And what was your athletic background? Like, tell
Yeah.
me everything.
So I was like every kid, right? Like I played baseball like early growing up, and then and I was pretty good, little league, traveling all
Sure.
sorts
Hey,
of guy. And I was pretty good, but I just decided I didn't want to play baseball anymore. My dad was a softball coach and an incredibly successful softball coach. He was his last 10 years of rec softball. He was 150 and 10. So he didn't
wow.
lose, but he was very much the coach that I'm not. Um,
Okay.
he was like old school Billy Martin, belly bumping the umpire, kicking the dirt. He would go to the mattresses for his players for sure. So we have like that in common, but like I'm more of like a jokester. I try to like keep it light but also intense. Um,
Hmm.
I try to keep it like very connected with each other, where he's just like, minute. So we've had a lot of discussions about that over the years about what makes a coach successful. So he actually though gave me my first break as a coach. Yeah.
Okay.
So I quit baseball, became a thrower, shot put and discus thrower in high school, And I was little. I mean, you can't tell, those of you out there, I'm 5'6", I'm 180 pounds. So I was not a big thrower, but I had power. I was explosive. Like after high school, when I was like 19, I could dunk a basketball. So I had power.
Man, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
And, but I had a coach. I was terrible. I mean, I was a terrible shot putter when I first started. I threw 28 feet. And my coach was like, "You're going to be okay. Just stay with me." And I was like, "I don't know about this." And he's like, "No, trust me. Just, you're going to do this." I said, "I think I should be a hurdler. I can jump and I'm fast." So he's like, "Why don't you just go down the track, stand next to the hurdle, and then come back up and let me know what you think." So I go down the track. I literally stand up next to the hurdle, and it's like right here. And I'm like,
Yeah, you're like,
"Yeah, I get what he's saying." So I walk back up, and he's like, "You ready to try this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So the thing with throwing is it's so technical, and that really kind of laid the foundation for me being like an analytical thinker about like how to perform like athletic movements, how to be dynamic and explosive under control with technique and all those things, which I'm still trying to figure out how to translate to my jiu-jitsu. That's a whole nother conversation.
it's a whole other ball game.
I still haven't figured that one out. But so like within that season, he's like, "Just stay with me, and practice." And I was a bit of a knucklehead too, and I needed that role model in my life, that adult figure, especially from a male perspective. And I went from 28 feet to 42 feet and won like the Pennsylvania. It's called the Keystone State Games, like the Pennsylvania State Games for my age group in the shot put. And I literally was like one of the worst to like now one of the best in the state at my age.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I learned in that, right? Like was relationships, because that guy spent the next 4 years with me pretty much every day, 300 days a year, 320 days a year, 2 hours a day, sometimes more, throwing a shot put and discus with me. And
Wow.
then whenever his son was a few years behind me, he got older, he actually had me coaching him, like while we were all practicing.
Oh, yeah.
So he was
Awesome.
modeling that for me. But then it kind of takes you like right around before that, my dad was the coach and I got to be a coach on his team. So then I started learning like the nuances of like how to work with players, how to talk to your players, how to like game plan, how to prepare, like all those different things. And then even prior to that too, like my football coach in Little League was, he was a football player at Notre Dame.
Oh,
So,
wow.
right. Like this is Little League football, Notre Dame football player.
Right.
Right. So we started learning, I learned how to make calls on a defense, as like
Oh
the
my God, that's
captain.
awesome.
Like I still remember like, 50 Eagle, all this stuff. I remember all of our calls because it was just like I was around these great coaches, right? These like really great thinkers, and they were all very different. And then one of my weightlifting coaches early on was the 84 Olympic, he's on the 84 Olympic staff for weightlifting. He's in the USA Weightlifting Hall of Fame. So like very fortunate to have like these
You have all
amazing,
these incredible people. Yeah.
in a small town in Western Pennsylvania too at that, right? Like we're not talking about like New York or Chicago. We're talking about
Sure.
Butler, Pennsylvania, not a big place, but all this like this talent, especially around coaching. And yeah, it just kind of kept going from there. I went to college. I ended up throwing shot put in college at Division II school called Kutztown University. And my coach, my throws coach there was the '88 Olympic coach in the shot put and the decathlon. And he was also an Olympian with Bob Mathias, like back in the 40s and early
Oh
50s.
my gosh.
Yeah. So again, like just being fortunate to be around great coaches. So
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of two things. Like my mom always said, like I'd be a good salesman because I've got a line of BS like this long. And I've, I've had like amazing coaches in my life. And even as a teacher, I had a great principal when I first started who taught me how to be a teacher. I had great math coaches who helped me become a math teacher. So um, I don't want to say I'm like use the word blessed and all this stuff. Like I've also been intentional about who I had surrounded myself with, especially as I've gotten older, because I learned very early, I had like a 0.8 grade point average in high school. And I had that coach who was like, no, we got to get it together. So he spent all that time with me. So I started having these great role models in my life early. And
Yeah.
who helped me
Mentors.
think through it. Yeah, great mentors. My mom's amazing, amazing woman. She always let us bear our own cross, for better, for worse, and but that helped me be very thoughtful about like the things that I say and do. Um, I'm not perfect at it, but like I have had great training, and I've had like great like mentors, and that's what it ultimately comes down to.
Well, that's huge. That's shaped, like even myself having my coach, Jeff is like teaching jiu-jitsu. I never thought this was something I was going to do. And then, being a personal trainer, nutrition coach, like I've just had these examples of people. And like you say, you surround yourself around positive, inspiring people. You can choose who you want to be around
For
all
sure.
day,
Yeah.
and so I think, you know, we've been lucky and you especially have had all these people in your life. And I think everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
But it's clearly gotten you to where you are today. And just knowing that they've made that impact on you and now you can go and like touch the lives of so many other people, that's the most fulfilling thing, I think. Like
Yeah.
I love being able to teach. I love being able to help people live a happier, healthier life, live their best lives. I
Absolutely.
think that's just the best part of it. That's something that's almost priceless,
Yeah. Yeah.
too, to be able to do that and help other people.
Yeah.
So that's awesome that you were able to kind of, take little bits too of all these people in your life, all
Yeah.
these influences, and create your own style of coaching.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is it's because it is like a hybrid of all these people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have my dad's like tenacity, I have like Coach Chance's like quirky, he would never swear, right? But he'd be like, "What the frick?" And like so I
I love
have
that.
like right, like so I have like that in me whenever I coach with people, though I do swear from time to time. Um, I have
I feel
like
like I'm similar in that way. I'll swear,
yeah,
but I'm always like that too. Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like and Coach Kelly in his like tactical way of thinking, and also like believing in the team, like
Mm-hmm.
those things, like all that stuff. And then I think again that crux, the fulcrum of it all was my mom, right? Like she taught me how to be reflective, like and to have gratitude and be thankful for people you're around. And that's always been the driver. Like it's always been the driver. I definitely see teaching and coaching as like being, and I don't think there's any shame in saying it either, because I get something out of it. Like I feel
Mm-hmm.
like a better person when I'm making a difference in somebody.
Sure.
And I think there's like this weird thing in our culture of like, is that really the right reason to do it? Yeah, absolutely. It feels good to help somebody. Like,
But yes, like if that makes you happy, like that's a good thing you're doing. I mean, come on. I'm like,
absolutely.
no,
There's,
that's,
there's
yeah,
no shame in being like happy that you're making people happy.
right.
And
Like,
that they're telling you thank you. Like that's okay. Like
yeah,
I want to hear people say thank you. I want that feeling because it helps me continue to push to do the best that I can, right? And
for sure.
that's all it really comes down to. Like, is it selfish in a way? Sure, but it's also not.
But I feel like that's like a good selfish. That's not even like selfish. I don't think selfish is the right word.
Yeah,
You
but
know?
how people get in that mindset.
Yeah.
Like, are you doing it for the right reasons? Then, yeah, no, 100%.
We're not looking, yeah, it's not like you're waiting for the praise from everybody. Like, thank you.
Right,
I'm the best coach ever.
right. It's not
It's
it.
like, no. But I mean, I can get emotional, when people tell me or share like their positive experiences or how I've impacted their life
Absolutely.
or even, and I'll say this because being in, an esthetician and makeup artist, I feel like being in the service industry, like,
Mhm.
you're always kind of in that therapist role.
Yeah.
People just want someone to listen.
Yep.
So,
And they're
big
contained,
time.
especially in that world, right? Like they're not moving.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Like I'm there giving them a facial and it's like, I'm right there, or in their
Yep.
face. It's like,
You're in it.
so, you know, I feel like, and especially dealing with, jujitsu, of course, that's a little bit broader. Like it's more of a, there's one-on-one, but in
Mhm.
classes, but dealing with people who are trying to go through and make like lifestyle change. I feel honored that they
Yeah.
want to share that journey with me. And it's a very vulnerable state to be in and to share certain details. or things. So I want to say thank you to them
Yeah,
for trusting me
absolutely.
to share all that.
Yeah,
Right.
what a gift it is, right? Like for someone to be able to share like their struggles, their their hopes, their dreams, like their demons, like all those things, like
Yeah.
shows you, right,
Hmm.
to do that with and to be part of their journey. Like you owe it to that person. Like when someone opens up their heart to you, you owe it to that person to like
Yeah.
part of their life.
Mhm.
Depending on how far you go, right, and how far you are on the journey with them. But in that moment, like that moment in their journey, like that's a really important moment, and you owe them that. Like if someone's willing to be vulnerable like that, again, you may not ride with them for the rest of their life, but you know, there's certain moments where I can fondly look back on people who I only knew for 2 weeks, and it changed my life. Like I had this
Yeah.
one example was I was in high school. I was throwing the
Hmm.
discus. I was not a very good discus thrower at that point yet either. And I was a sophomore, was throwing like 122 feet in the discus, not really that good. And I saw this guy on the playground, the other end. Again, these like little magical people in your life, right?
Yep.
Dude's like 5'10", jacked, like super jacked. Arms are so long he can scratch his knees standing straight up. Okay.
Oh my God.
All this guy is doing, and this is a small town, all right? So
Yeah.
I've seen this guy before, standing under the hoop, jumping up and dunking it, just doing it over and over again. And I
Yeah.
said to my buddy, I'm like, who's that guy? Like, and he's like, oh, that guy's name's Marty. He's like a boxer, or he's in the army. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So we're like, hey, do you want to play 33? So he comes down, we're playing, we're done playing. This guy's just destroying us, right? Like he's a grown man. And I said to him, like, so do you box? And he's like, no, I'm actually a thrower on the all army team. And I'm
You're like, what?
like, like shot put discus? He's like, yeah. I'm like, get out of here, man. And he's like, wow, do you throw? I'm like, yes. I'm like, so
Actually, yes, I
yeah.
do.
I'm like, you're on the all army team? That's amazing. Like, how long are you in town? He's like, well, he was in foster care as a kid, and the family that he was with had moved to our town. So he was just there visiting.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
See, everything
Right.
happens for a reason.
So
Yep.
like 2 weeks, this guy, he's like, you want to throw? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So we threw every day together for 2 weeks. I went to a bench press competition with him, where I saw him bench 475 pounds with like no warm up. Like we literally got out of his
Oh
car,
my God.
went in, and he hit it, and then got his trophy and left. Um, yeah, he was the junior world record holder in powerlifting at one point. Like he was just a freak of nature. And
That's incredible.
we stayed in touch. He went back. We stayed in touch for like probably a few months.
Okay.
After that. His name was Marty Perkins, and just kind of that was it, right? This is the early '90s. Like
Okay.
there's no real way to keep in touch other than like paper.
Sure. Yeah.
Uh, so I never knew of him again or anything. I ran to his high school coach 15 years later, and he told me, some things that had happened in his life, and that's his story.
Okay.
I knew this guy for 2 weeks, and I went from 122 feet to 145 feet
Wow.
because I was throwing with a world-class thrower who was in the Olympic trials in 1992, right? Like, like it just doesn't
Huge
happen.
impact.
Yeah,
Right.
for 2 weeks. And there's those people, right? Like, what a gift that was for 2 weeks. And,
Hmm.
we could be that. And long story short, we could be that for somebody else. So
Totally.
we need to do it if we can.
And it doesn't matter the time, like you said, that you're in someone's life. I feel like people are in your life for as long as you need them to be.
Yeah.
And so it's, my job, I want to be able to teach people how to do this and not need me. So, it's like, let me help you create that healthy lifestyle. And
Mhm.
I hope you can go on and succeed without that. So I think it's certain people are meant to be there for a little bit for that
Mhm.
2 weeks. And then, some people are lifers, but that's amazing, man. If you could you know, find out where he was today.
Yeah, I kind of know.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's his story to tell. But
Okay.
he, I can tell you in those 2 weeks, I became a different person. I, you see what it is to like train, right? Like we would literally throw for 6 hours, like
Wow.
6 hours throwing a shot put in a discus. Like you just learn like how to like to grind through like those tough reps and like
Yeah.
stay focused on your technique and all those things. And again, I just hope one day I can learn how to do that with jiu-jitsu.
I was gonna say, well, first of all, our youngest is starting to do shot put, which is awesome. Like she's doing all that, and it's been amazing. She's had some meets. She actually had a meet yesterday and took ninth out of 23.
That's awesome.
So, and this was only like her second or third meet, so it's been really, really fun and exciting.
I told Jay, I know a throws coach if he ever, because that's the other part. I coached throwing for like, I don't know, a gabillion years. But
yeah, so this could be, this could be a thing. Like,
hey,
who knows? I'm super excited about it. But let's talk about jiu-jitsu a little bit.
Let's talk about it. I love jiu-jitsu. What a gift.
Jiu-jitsu is amazing. It is a gift. It is a gift.
Gift wrapped.
It could be. There you go.
It's
it could be a very frustrating gift at times, but it's an amazing one also.
Yeah.
How did you get started in jiu-jitsu?
Oh man, that's a story. Again, like these people who pop into your life, right? So Jeremy, who started Capital. I'm sure Jay probably has talked about the story a million times. And, he started off in a classroom, then it turned into something bigger. And I ran into him at a gym. I was a personal trainer. And he was, I don't know, he was like talking to somebody. And I found out he was like a martial artist and he was a school teacher. And I was also a school teacher. So him and I are just talking. He's like, hey, you ever want to do jiu-jitsu? Jeremy, always selling, right?
Of course.
Always be selling. I think that's from the boiler room, right? Always be selling or always be closing.
You and Jay with the movie lines or whatever. I don't know.
Jay's on a different level. I mean,
different level.
Yeah. Like
that man like knows everything. I don't even know.
He's the world's most interesting person. He really is. And he's a killer too. But
yeah, frames are so annoying. They're a pain in my ass. Anyway, go ahead.
And so like he just was like, hey, do you want to try it? I'm like, yeah, sure. I started there in the blue room. That's where I met Jay. Jeremy was a blue belt at the time. Jay was a newer blue belt. Iman, who was like, Capital legend, women's MMA legend around here. She was a white belt.
Yeah, she's awesome.
We started like the same time, right? Like,
wow.
Yeah, like it was this amazing, like, God, there's so many great memories there. And then Jeremy's like, hey, you want to be the strength coach? And I'm like, yeah. So I trained him and I trained Iman and then started leading warm-ups and then doing like workouts in the gym and stuff like that. And then I remember vividly Jeremy and I sitting on the back steps and I've talked about this. He doesn't remember it. I'm like, dude, I remember this. He was like, hey,
this happened.
Yeah. He's like, do you want to leave teaching and just do this? And I'm like, nah, man, I don't know if I'm going to be here. Like I was, new to the area. And I'm like, nah. Yeah. And I was afraid, like, take that kind of a risk. And he's like, it's going to grow, man. And I'm like, I don't know. And then here we are, 20 years later with like 7 schools getting an
7 locations.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So like, there was that moment where I had an opportunity. I didn't take it. But that's kind of how I started in jiu-jitsu. I was a strength coach and I was doing jiu-jitsu. I was a lot better like athlete back then. It was before 14 surgery. Well, I've had, I guess, 12 since then.
Holy heck, surgeries?
Yeah, tons of injuries. Mostly because of throwing and lifting.
Man.
And yeah, so like I started doing jiu-jitsu and then I switched to being a strength coach full time. And then I just I wanted to start throwing again. So I started doing the Highland Games and I did the Highland Games from 2007 to up to a couple years ago was when my last one was. But I officially retired when I was 40.
Mm-hmm.
But it was
good
like,
for you. That's amazing.
It's the best. We had so much fun. Like 10 years of just literally traveling, been thrown in Germany, Scotland, Iceland, Alaska, Arizona, Florida.
That's incredible.
Like it was just traveling with my buddies, throwing all the time, like over the course of the summer and into the fall. Like it was an amazing experience.
How long would you be out, like on a stretch? Like how long would you be gone?
It would be a weekend for sure.
Okay.
But like when we went to, so Iceland was where the Masters World Championships were. That was like my last game.
Yeah.
We were there for like 5 days. It was a 2-day competition. Germany it was a 1-day competition, but we were there for like 5 days. Alaska was, like a week. So some of the trips were a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But then we have a pretty actually great hotbed of like Highland game throwers in the DMV. So at least when I was
very interesting.
Pretty cool. It's kind of like where powerlifters and track and field people kind of go to die. Like I'm not going to ever qualify for the Olympics in the shot put, so I'm going to go throw stones. And talk.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
It's wonderful times for sure. And a lot of injuries. Yeah.
I mean, like, what were some of the injuries you had? I feel like that's gotta, like, your shoulders gotta be.
Yeah. So I mean, I've had my knee done. I've had my knee done twice, my meniscus twice. I've had, multiple like muscle tears, elbow, wrist. The biggest ones, I had my shoulder replaced. That wasn't really a result of throwing necessarily. That was just years and years of just damage to my shoulders. Because I've started lifting when I was 12. And I had good coaches, but also in the 80s, it was just like goes
a little different.
Yeah.
And
when you're little, like
a little bit of a different mentality. And
you just want to keep up with the big guys, right? Like, so I just wanted to lift as much as I could. And, there's a price for that. But so that kind of caused me to retire from throwing. And then that's when I was like, you know what? Like wrestling, boxing, martial arts were always like a thing for me when I was a little kid, especially in the 80s with like, the Last Dragon. Last Dragon, with Bruce Leroy, inspiring us all. So like I loved martial arts, and I was like, I'm going to go back. And I started doing Muay Thai because I wasn't comfortable like rolling with my shoulder. And much fear.
Sure. I can imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's the worst thing that could happen is like an anterior dislocation of it. And so that's what takes an arm from right here. Yeah. So I defend that really well on my right side.
Americana City, like, nope, I don't think so.
No one's getting out. You can choke me to death. I will not give you my arm for an Americana. You literally gouged my eyes out. You're not getting an Americana on me.
That's how I just feel with like elbows having been like hyperextended, and like I can't like take pressure kind of going in this way, and like Americana, I'm like, oh nope, turning my whole body, like nope.
Take my back. My wedgie. I don't care.
Give me my arm.
Want my arm back. So then that's when I started doing Muay Thai and just getting moving again. And then I just got to the point where I felt safe and secure and enough flexibility and strength in that shoulder. I was like, I'm just going to start doing it again. And I haven't looked back. It's been amazing. I've had a few surgeries since then, like to clean up some injuries. So I guess I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 7 years and spent through 4.5 like as a blue belt, but that was also like COVID. And then I had elbow surgery and hand and a knee surgery. So I've had a few, just kind of clean.
Yeah, that's a lot. That takes a lot of downtime and recovery. A lot of time off the mat.
Yeah, and not to mention all the stress of being an administrator at the time. So that's kind of like where I'm like reborn. The way I look at it, I'm reborn. I'm getting close to 50.
That's amazing. And now, like you cleaned up kind of like your eating habits. You've dropped down all this weight, like super lean, and like definitely building up that muscle, and competed again at Fuji a few months ago. How awesome does that feel?
Yeah, it's amazing. And you're a huge part of that. Obviously. And because that was like the thing. I was like, hey, I've had like nutritionists in the past for sure. And I had one who I worked with when I was throwing, who was like, his name was Dr. Tom Bilala. And he's since passed, but he was amazing. Joe DeFranco,
Wow.
The great strength coach, that was his
Mm-hmm.
guy. That's how I found out about Dr. Tom. Um, and I used to go there every 6 weeks, do blood work over the course of preparing for world championships and Masters World Championships and throwing, to just get dialed in. So I've been there before, but I got so
Yeah.
far away from it, and I just was such a mess that, and I didn't. It's nutritionists, personal trainers, chiropractors, doctors, lawyers, teachers, whatever. There's like good ones, then there's ones who are not very good, and then there's like great ones, right? And the
Yeah.
great ones all have like this common thread. Like they keep it simple, they don't overcomplicate things, and they listen to you and help and not try to make presumptions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I needed that. Like that's what I need. I cut through the BS, and that's why I wanted to work with you, because I knew you would keep it
Thank
simple.
you.
We have a relationship. I trust you. I trust Jay. Jay married you. You must be all right. um, so like that was important to me, and I think the proof is in the pudding. Like, I mean, I've lost so much like fat. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, I'm still broad, though I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but I'm still like broad shouldered, like
Mm-hmm.
I was at 215, but I'm just not as fat. And I feel good about that. Like I know it's not a vain thing. It's not like vanity. It's just I'm healthier. Like
It's
I'm not.
health, though.
I
Like,
can
it's how
feel my
you feel.
toes.
Right.
Like
I mean, you've got to be able to move better throughout the day. Like, you feel better, energized. I mean, that's a whole other topic. But I mean, there's so many benefits.
so many.
And you do, like, and there's nothing wrong with that, too. Like, you feel more confident about your appearance, but there's all these other added benefits. And I mean, how much better does it feel rolling?
Oh, it's a complete, like I feel like a different person. Like every practice, every sparring match, someone's like, dude, you just don't. They're like, you still feel strong, but you don't feel the same anymore. Like
Mhm.
I can backstep,
That's awesome.
right? Like if I'm in a position where I'm like, oh, I'm kind of tipping here, I can backstep and regain my position or something. Like I'm more fluid, more dynamic. And I mean, it's even like one of my clients I work with at 6 o'clock in the morning, like before I lost the weight, like I would demonstrate on the floor at 6 in the morning, and I'm like creaky getting up, like it's hard, off the floor. And now I'm like, just I'll
Yeah,
pop down and pop right back up. Like it's just even that. Like I don't do it. I remember like
that's huge.
doing an inventory check when I would wake up in the morning. I would like
Hmm.
put my feet on the floor right out. I got out of bed and I'm like, all right, that hurts. That doesn't. And I just kind of like work my ways from my toes to the top of my head. And just seeing like if I move too quick, like my back's gonna tweak or something, like my knee's gonna bother me. But now like I don't even do the inventory checking. And that's amazing.
That's awesome.
Like it's those little things, right? Like
Hmm.
those little things that you're like, man, this is how I'm supposed to feel. This is what it's like when a doctor says to you, when you're in pain for a long time and they're like, are you in pain? You're like, nah, no, but you have to be, your arm's falling off. You're like, no, but they're like, that's not normal. Like, that's not how you should always feel. It's the same thing.
That's great.
It's magic.
It's no, I'm so proud of you. I mean, I think the, transformation has been incredible, and I'm just so happy for how you're feeling. And just being able to kind of up your training too with jiu-jitsu, and like you're going to do Masters Worlds in August. I mean, that's incredible. So I'm excited to see, um, you know, even more transformation and just, see you out there doing your thing. And
Thank you.
uh, just, it's awesome. It's awesome. I don't
Yeah,
know what else to say. It's incredible.
I'm excited. I'm excited to have you on the journey with me. I mean, and I think that's the other piece too. Like for all your listeners who are like, I don't know how many people I've referred you to you, but it's also like not just jujitsu players, right? Like it's people who just want to do better.
Mhm.
And I think that's where you have like a unique skill set that other people don't. Like you've lived it, like you've changed your life. So you understand that component, like the pre-jiu-jitsu athlete. Like, I mean,
For
you're a
sure.
black belt, but like you know what it's like before that. And I think that makes you unique compared to a lot of people, is that you know what the struggle's like
Mhm.
as an athlete and not as an athlete. And yeah, what a
Yeah.
great opportunity for, anybody out there. Do it. You need help,
Oh,
get it. It's worth
well,
it.
thanks, man. I appreciate that. I think it's so much more powerful when somebody can kind of relate to you. Like when you kind of lived that experience
Mhm.
or lived life and you kind of talk about that and people can just really relate to that and know that you're a real person and honest and they can be vulnerable like we were talking about before. So, yeah, I've definitely been there, had my own transformation. And it's great to see people kind of come out on the other side and be able to live the way I think they were meant to,
Yeah.
and see what they're able to do and what they're really capable of. And that's the empowered feeling that I love seeing people like feel. It's just incredible. To feel empowered is an amazing thing.
It is. And it's hard, right? Like it's not
Hmm.
easy work, but
No.
it does get easier. Like you just gotta
Yeah.
keep working.
I don't like, and I'll say this in jujitsu sometimes too. And one of my coaches used to say this all the time, but I'm like, it's not easy. Like, don't say it's easy, but there's things too, I'll tell people. And I watch myself because I'm like, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's simple,
Right.
right? There's simple changes,
Yep.
simple things to do,
Yep.
but we do get in our own head a lot.
Yep.
But it's like once you get in that routine and you do it, and that's why I like to take little steps with people. It's like, oh, I can do that. That wasn't so hard. Great. What's the next thing? Like you can
100%.
see what you're capable of and what you can accomplish.
Yeah.
And
Especially, no,
that's awesome.
yeah, like lifting, like I always think of that too, like the becoming stronger. People,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
then I can't get stronger. I'm like, no, you can't. Getting strong is not really that hard. Like
Hmm.
on paper, it's not hard. Like there's a lot of different ways to get strong. I think there's some ways that are better than others. Um, but you can get stronger. It's just whether or not you're willing to continue to do it and continuing to do it, because it's just like jujitsu, right? Like, are you willing to continue to do it? That's my biggest regret, is I didn't keep doing it at least
Yeah,
like one day a week, right? Like,
right.
because now like everybody I started with is all black belts. So, so like all I had to do is just keep doing it, right? But like,
Everyone has their own journey though, BJ. That's what I would say. It's like, I know, you're like, oh, damn
yeah,
it.
but that's the
But
thing. Just keep doing it. If it makes you happy, keep doing it. And if it doesn't make you happy, don't do it. Like find out the thing that you like to do and do that.
that
You
comes back to the whole, like, that's full circle here. Perfect timing on that. But this
know?
pursuit of happiness, like, you made that change in your life for your job. That was like a huge change, but it's like, do things that make you happy. You should be happy in life. Live one life, like,
This is it.
you know, yeah,
Yeah. Memento mori, right? Could die right now, and but I'll be all right if I do. Like I know I'm doing the best I can.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, with that being said, I mean, I feel like we've kind of come to a good place here, but I gotta say this too. And I was I was talking to Jay about this, being from Pennsylvania. Were you near Pittsburgh?
Yeah, so I grew up 37 miles north of Pittsburgh.
I think I've told you this though. Like my dad, like
Mhm.
I grew up in a house where my dad was a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan
Of course.
and like the Pirates.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's like we have all this memorabilia, and it's like I don't even know how like that became a thing.
Because it's the
And
Pittsburgh
like my uncle was like Philly, he loved the Eagles. So I'm like, how did this all like nobody? It's not like the Bears or anything like that. It's just like,
Steelers.
not even Cubs or Sox. I mean, it's all like dad was just Pittsburgh, like Steelers, Pirates.
So
That was
they were
those are the
great.
teams.
Like his generation, like that was like the Pirates were out. It was the city of champions. I mean,
Yeah.
with the Steel Curtain, the Pirates were winning World Series. Like And it's funny because I remember us talking about it at the party when I first met
Yes.
him. Because like I
Yes.
was a huge Bears fan. I didn't
Yeah.
even like the Steelers because the Bears, when I was a kid, it was the Bears and St. Louis Cardinals for me because they were
Yeah.
the best. Like Walter Payton, the defense, the Bears D, like, I mean, gosh. And then Dick Butkus, of course, trying to think. I got a ton of Bears, like baseball players behind me. I'm a
That's
dork.
awesome. But it's just so funny. I'm like, oh my God, Pittsburgh. Like, so I have to bring that up. But it was just, and he was a laborer all his life. Like I just think there were so many. I don't know.
So,
Like it's that. Yeah. Like
such a similar mentality, like
totally,
so much.
totally. So that was, I had to share that. That's like, and still is. Those are the teams, man. Those
Yeah,
are the teams
I get it.
that LZ goes for. It's like that's it.
No shame in that. Pirates are doing great this year too. Who knows? We'll see what happens. Might make the playoffs.
Yeah. I'm like, I have no idea. I don't even follow any of that, but
They're like the
great.
second hottest team in baseball. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's not gonna last. There's no way. But there would.
That's great. So as we come to a close, because both of us do have to go and do train jiu-jitsu, which is great.
This is true.
Where can people find you? Where can they follow you? And if they want to get some strength and conditioning services, how do they go about that?
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. So the Forged Athletics on Instagram. That's really the only place you're gonna find me. I mean, I have Facebook is like private and all that stuff, but I post a lot of junk there too. But I try to keep Instagram really just like my business stuff. Yeah, if you got questions, you want to know anything, I'm an open book kind of guy. So like, if anybody needs anything, I'm happy to help. I do know some nutrition, but I always defer to people better than me, and that's you. But yeah, if you need any questions or need any help around, strength and conditioning, mindset, which we talk about some other time. That's probably more of my. I'm a good strength coach, but the mindsets to me is like I think the key for it all. So, and there's
Yeah,
definitely
that's huge. BJ's awesome. You have to reach out. And that is something I think, and we touched on briefly, but you're just so encouraging. And I think you really can get people kind of in that right headspace. So
thank you.
you guys reach out to BJ, utilize his services. And thank you for just being so inspirational and sharing that story too, because that's a personal story. And, I think it's got a great message. And I'm grateful that I was able to have you on. Please share.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Jen. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share it. So keep kicking butt. We'll see you soon.
Yay. Thank you so much. And to all the listeners out there, anybody you'd like me to have on my podcast, please send me a message on my Instagram at All Things Gen Z. I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.